Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the creator of all that exists. This is your program, Islam Works. You know, in the world in which we live today, let me change that. Since the beginning, since Prophet Muhammad first revealed that he was a prophet of Allah, people have been saying horrible things about Islam, horrible things about Prophet Muhammad, and gross misconceptions about Almighty God Allah. And this is something that's been ongoing. I don't think there's actually been a decade in the last 1,400 years when someone, some country, some individual has not made statements about Islam that were based on ignorance, or as one imam I used to listen to has said, lies, weak ideas, and wrong understanding, because this is what it causes. If you look at the history of Islam, you'll find that Muslims have aided the world, have been a benefit to every society that we've ever been in. As long as we practiced Islam the way that Allah tells us to in His Quran, the way that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has done in his Sunnah. So this program, Islam Works, essentially is to help to offset some of the ignorance about Islam. And our guests are here to tell you, most of them, not all of them, but most of our guests are people who are converts, if you want to use the word, reverts to Islam. But I'll use the word converts. It's less confusing right now. I'll explain that reverts statement at another time. And today we have our brother Abdullah Baron from California. What part of California are you
Los
from?
Angeles.
Los Angeles, California. And I think his story is, well, like all of our guests, extremely interesting. And I use the word extremely? No. I'll say very, very interesting. And also very educational, enlightening. So, brother Abdullah, would you give us an idea about yourself?
Yeah.
Who are you? How long have you been a Muslim? And how has Islam helped you to become a better human being?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, wa salatu wa salam ala khayri anbiya wa mursaleen, Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon the best of His prophets and messengers, Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, and upon his family and all of his companions.
Ameen.
Today, not today, but I've been Muslim now 25 years, and the search began, I guess, the last year of high school, trying to understand more about African American history, because in Los Angeles, like other major cities, there's a population in some of the inner cities, what they call the inner cities. You see a lot of problems, and so you figure, how can you either help contribute to solving those problems, or examine and see, are you contributing to the problem? So my mother, who isn't Muslim, she's living with me right now. She came to Saudi Arabia. She actually gave me the autobiography of Malcolm X. And so I read that.
Your mother gave this to you?
She gave that to me,
when you were out of high school?
Yeah, out of high school, when I was in high school, because I was one summer I used to go to summer school, and when I did go to summer school, I usually went to the school that was in a better neighborhood, closer to the beach. But then I got tired of taking the bus, and so I decided to try one summer at Washington High School, and that, which was in my neighborhood. They even had a little movie on it, but not on me going to high school, but that area in that particular school. So in the summer I went there, and the subjects I studied was like history and then biology. Biology was really disappointing, but the history was being introduced to.
When we say history, you're talking about national history, world history, what they call Black history.
Yeah. Well, on the curriculum, they gave it as just history, and they made it so that it was relevant for the neighborhood, so they called it Black history.
So it was all inclusive.
It was all inclusive, but this one focused on African American history,
Okay.
because Washington High School was predominantly African American.
Okay.
And so that was my introduction to just kind of a little bit more introduction to, the history of how we, how we came to America, and actually reading more works on I guess more literature focused works on history and accounts. So
Okay.
that was a beginning, and my mother's contribution was the autobiography of Malcolm X. So she gave it to me then. I didn't finish it till I was probably the first year at college. But when I did it, it began me asking questions. And, just reading through his life, you walk through the stages he went through.
It was a journey, wasn't it?
It was a journey. It was
Yeah.
really a journey, and you asked, you gave questions to ask, and that's sometimes the most important thing, is the questions to ask about why are things the way they are? Can they be better? What resources can we reach to find a better way, reprogram? So in that journey, I read the book. When I first year of college, I was looking into Islam, and I was raised Christian and kind of strict. I didn't do a lot of this and that, and I used to, one of my, I wouldn't say a pastime, but when the Jehovah's Witnesses would come to the house, I'd wait for them. I wasn't Muslim, but I used to debate with them as a teenager and stuff like that. So it was something I was used to looking. I liked history. I liked the aspect of religion, and so it was towards my inkling.
Okay.
So anyway, in college, I looked into Islam, visited the Islamic Center, and in Davis, California, because I went to college at UC Davis, and the person I met was an Egyptian brother named Ali Akhtar, and he talked to me, and things he said really hit home.
When you looked into Islam, was it an intellectual pursuit? Were you just looking for comparative religion? What was it that caused you to begin to look at Islam?
I wanted to get
Briefly,
a better,
inshallah.
Yeah, I just wanted to get an understanding of what was our past as
Okay.
African Americans, because
So
it was
when
incomplete.
see, this is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand. When you were getting African American history in high school, okay, there was a mention of the participation of African societies in the Muslim experience.
Yeah. Yes, the new thing was that
This is
Islam was a
something
part.
I knew nothing about.
Yeah, this is something I did. You never, in the discussion, you never hear Islam mentioned as a part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
And so the autobiography of Malcolm X introduced that as saying, oh, well, this was part of our history, although it wasn't commonly talked about. And so I had to ask myself, why wasn't it talked about? If they didn't talk about it, let me look into it a little more. So that's what
Okay,
that
I
opened up.
understand now. Okay.
You have the buffet,
Mm-hmm.
and so that part of the meal was not given and presented for me to partake in and ask questions about, not trying to benefit from the nutrition from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what brought me in that track. And so when I went to the Islamic Center, the brother gave me some books. He said simply, in Islam we don't have an intermediary between us and Allah and God. It's straightforward. The imam may lead the prayer, but you have a direct connection. You don't have to go through a third party to communicate. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I like that, straight path, just, to the Creator. And the other aspect that he gave the analogy of if you had 10 sons, one of them was really, really good, and the other ones were rotten. They stole from you, didn't help you, but one was good. Would you kill him because of what the other ones did or didn't do? Would that be fair? And so the idea of Allah being the most fair, Adil, that it didn't agree with what we know to be a characteristic of Allah, being the most fair. That would not resemble fairness. So how would Jesus die for the sins of everybody else? And he was an epitome of goodness. So that raised questions. I read about Islam, and because I was raised not doing a lot of things, the things that, it has to do with relationships or, intoxicants. I didn't really do that, not too much. And when I read about Islam, it says you don't do that. And I was like, okay, I wanted to, well, let me go test these things. Let me wait for Islam a little bit and then go around. So I searched for 6 years, at the university, basically, studying African religions, going deeper into reading about Christianity. Eventually, 6 years later, went back to looking at Islam.
So it sounds like you were in studying history.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Actually, that was the second major. Yeah, I had.
So what was your first major?
Eventually, when I finally decided, it was nutrition science, dietetics,
Okay.
and then I had the second major was African American studies, and so.
Okay, so you were following both streams at the same time.
Yes,
okay.
yes. And so in that exploration, I looked into different religions that they had in Africa, and I tried this and tried that, and it didn't answer the question about, who is my Lord and what does he want from me? And it didn't simplify things. They want to introduce additional deity, somebody else to pray to and stuff, and that formulation was more complicated. So.
Okay, so you were studying history in order to find out, to try and to understand the problems that were in existence in the African American community.
Yes.
And you were studying nutrition
at the same time
as one of the means of possibly
yes.
helping to solve some of these issues.
Yes. So how do you?
Okay.
Yeah, the nourishment.
I heard an interesting statistic recently,
yes.
and the statistic was that 80% of all disease is caused by what we eat.
Yeah.
Or what we don't eat.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm sorry. Go right ahead, brother.
Yeah, but just building on that, the objective was the nutrition deals with the external part of nourishing the body, the physical body, but then the spiritual trek I was trying to find was that which nourishes the soul. How do those two go together?
Mm-hmm.
The physical and then I guess you say metaphysical. So when I eventually graduated, I started my master's at UC Davis in public health, and the focus was public health nutrition. And as I learned, they mentioned, and as I was a new Muslim, because by my last year of college, I accepted Islam.
Okay, last year of your bachelor.
Of my bachelor's, yes,
okay.
yes.
Before you began your master's.
Before I began my master's, I accepted Islam, and so I started, studying about Islam. And one of the things I found, like you mentioned, in the Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad, he taught us that the majority of diseases begin in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So as I knew that from nutrition, and then public health reiterated the aspect that it's not just on the something that affects the individual, but it also spreads to the immediate environment, the family and the society and the community. So I saw in my initial, state of Islam, a lot of similarity, as Islam would be like the perfect public health program. And actually I would even assert the longest running successful one.
It's an interesting conclusion.
Yeah. So once I saw
it's also substantiated by history.
Yeah, by history and the prescription, because like in let's say in a hospital or something, you have the doctor gives you a prescription, or in my case, when I was working in the hospital as an intern, a dietetic intern, you would maybe give a dietary prescription for a patient. They can choose to follow it or not. So the prescription, like Islam gives, this gives you the best health. Okay. Just like ideally, say a dietitian or and I'm not a dietitian, but in the training that I did, you would give a diet, or a doctor would prescribe a prescription, and if they follow it, they have the best chance of health. Islam gives the prescription for life, even physical and eating, and it's the best prescription of health if you find it, if you follow it.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
One of the things that, just briefly to touch on one of the things that influenced me about Islam when I became a Muslim was that, I had some issues, personal issues. And what I found is that Islam is like a panacea. It deals with everything at the same time. It deals with the mental, the physical, the spiritual, all at once, all right? It's not like, I'm a vegetarian, but I drink wine, or I smoke marijuana, or take drugs. You have some vegetarians that that do those things. They think it's okay, as long as it's natural.
Yeah.
Okay? And then it's not like, you have ideas, like maybe what an atheist would have, all right, where they say, well, I'm a good person. I don't have to believe in God to be a good person. So where are you getting your direction from?
Yeah.
Okay? And then you have some people who have other problems. For instance, they might have health issues that are related to their physical being, or maybe the information they're taking. You have some people who are criminals, okay? And they think that the criminal or the thug life is the way to go. Okay, I'm a vegetarian, okay? I believe that God is for everybody. I'm an agnostic, okay? And at the same time, I still think that it's okay to commit crime if I take the money, Robin Hood syndrome, and I take that money and I give it to the church, something like what the mafia does, or something like some thugs in the African American community do.
Or other
Okay.
than
Or other, yeah. Okay. So we have all these things. When Islam says, what we get from the Quran is that it's not a matter of how you do it. It's not a matter of how you do it. It's a matter of the fact that what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And it's clear between the two. You're not going to steal money, all right, and then take it and give it to the local masjid or whatever, and it's going to be something to your benefit, okay? So what I'm saying in agreement with you is that Islam deals with everything at one time, in the diet, with the mental, and with the physical, okay? Because it also says that men were made for working. We're made to get out and to work, okay? Yeah. So I'm sorry, brother. Go right ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that the really magnificent thing about Islam is that it gives you the how. It tells you the how to do it. It gives you the procedure, and it gives a range for you to operate in.
Okay.
So that was the difference, because everybody, all these different groups, say I was a part of, searching for the truth, they're all trying to get the same thing. But the path to get that may be off, it may be too narrow, too wide.
Right.
And so, Islam, I found, is completely scalable. Absolutely. And it's like in public health, there's a concept of public health program as an ecological model, starting from the individual, and it expands out. And the example of Islam started in the desert, where there's not many resources. The community was very poor, and they were from the weaker people, and it was a scale, and it was on an individual basis in how they contributed, and they completely scalable until you came to a nation state. So it's completely scalable, individually tailored, but there's a range of operation that have to be recognized, and that's why
individually tailored, but good for the overall.
Yes, yeah, and so I mean, that's where the public health part actually, because you don't you have a public health program. You do something, but you have to have a criteria to let you know that you've achieved success. You have to have a measure, and you have to define it with a amount, a time period to achieve it, and what it should look like.
Okay.
And then in Islam, it gives you that through the seerah, the prophet, the story of the prophet's life, the things he said, the life of the Sahabas, and his companions, and the ones who followed him, and the ones who followed him. That criteria has been given. And so it allows us to actually measure what's being achieved and how close is it to the gold standard. And that's what it's about. People try to do good things, but how are they going to judge it? And Islam gives us the measuring stick to see. And we have a golden criteria, which is the Quran, the Sunnah, and the understanding of the companions who were his students and those who followed him. So we compare it to today too.
Okay, that's true. Like you said, we have the Quran, we have the Sunnah, and now in our case, we have the Seerah, the history, which is the, like I guess you could say the empirical proof as to what works and what doesn't, as far as Islam is concerned. So when you got into, okay, how did the two come together in your life? Now, when you finished your bachelor's program, you went into your master's program when you began studying public health.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So in between the two, you became a Muslim.
Yes.
Okay.
Between the two, between graduation.
So there was like a coming together of the two.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as you grew and developed, at any time, were you married? Did you get married?
No. Yeah, no. At the beginning, I was not married.
Okay.
And so that was a transition, coming
Okay.
through college, doing what many college students may do, and then you
Okay.
become Muslim. And so now you have a criteria of behavior that's different.
You know something, Abdullah? Maybe, inshallah, we'll do a part 2 on this, okay? Because this is interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the information that you have to relay, so far what you've relayed has been very helpful, okay? And, now you're showing how you came into Islam, and you already had your foundation as far as your information of the history of your people, how they interacted with Islam, how some of our ancestors may have been Muslims or probably
Without
were.
doubt.
And how, now you're coming into a way to solve a problem within the community in which you were born.
Yeah.
So maybe, inshallah, in the next segment we do, we'll go further with that.
That
Okay?
sounds good.
And, inshallah, you'll be able to see how Islam works.